Welcome to the True Demon Lord Show. I am the True Demon Lord Franco, and today we're going to be carrying on in our God Focus series. Today, focusing on the God of Excess and all of her minions, Slaanesh. So, we're going to be going into, like we normally do, we're going to be going through the slides and just talking through strengths, weaknesses, stuff like that, and just some hopefully knowledge and just some little bits of tips showing you synergies that can help you if you want to run those mono Slaanesh lists. So let's get straight into it. And let's start with strengths. So, what is the strengths of a pure Slaanesh list or the majority of Slaanesh units? Super fast. So you're looking at like minimum movement 9. Like Demonettes are movement 9. A lot of your smaller characters are movement 9. Then you've got a lot of like 14-inch movements for your greater demons, your chariots. So very fast, able to get around the board. Some of your more important units like your chariots, your greater demons do have to move around walls, but again, with that much speed, it's a lot easier to kind of maneuver around the walls, just being able to fly about the board. Mass amount of dev wounds. So pretty much everything, if it has some kind of claw attack, which everything does, it will have devastating wounds on it. So demonettes, fiends, the riders on the seekers, the riders on the chariots, your greater demons with their claw attacks, all have devastating wounds. So that just allows you to punch up a bit more than you normally would, because you've not got the best strength in the world. You've got a lot of strength 4, strength 5, strength 8, but those devastating wounds just allow you to punch up a little bit better. The greater demons are resilient. So the keepers and Shalaxi are all pretty tough. Your keepers innately -1 to hit. Tough as 10, 4 up invuln. You're always going to be taking the Shining Aegis bit of war gear, which is the shield. That gives them a 5 up for no pain, so it makes them really, really tough. Shalaxi, again, T10 built in 5 up for no pain, 4 up invuln. And then she gets to reduce attacks in one enemy unit in the fight phase, so that's pretty good as well. Um, we've got great ability to move block as well. So what do I mean by move block? Well, Seekers have a 9-inch scout plus a 14-inch move. That allows them to just fly across the board if you go first. Everything, like I said, is quite fast, especially once you start adding in advances and stuff like that. That allows you to kind of just block your opponent in, stop them from being able to move onto objectives, getting the key units. So you've just got enough speed and decent base sizes that you can kind of just block your opponent from really getting to the parts of the board they really need to get to. Um, and of course, like Shalaxi is just a strength in of her own. She's amazing, right? She's expensive. 450 points is really pricey, but she is the only unit in the book that you can kind of just send for anything and it will generally die. Like if you need something to die, it's like, cool, I have Shalaxi. I'm going to push her forward and she's going to go deal with it. So yeah, Shalaxi is definitely a strength all in her own. Looking at the weaknesses, so there are a few weaknesses, generally quite squishy. So the Greater Demon's pretty tough. Chariots aren't too bad either, tough for 6, 7 with 5 up invuln. But like your basic troops, your Demoness, are only T3, 1 wound and a 5 up invuln. The Seekers are only T4 with 2 wounds and a 5 up invuln. Even the Fiends, like T5 and 4 wounds but a 5 up invuln. So you know, not the toughest army in the world. You're kind of relying on debuffs to hit some wounds and stuff like that. Um, but if your opponent has way around them, then you can kind of pick up your smaller stuff pretty easy. Like we said, the Great Demons are tough, which is nice. But your more utility units definitely on the squishier side. Um, Slanesh sadly suffers with being overpriced in a lot of areas. Like your Demonettes are 110 points, 11 points each. When you're getting an Orc Boy in the Green Tide for about 8.5 points, which is tough as 5 with a 5 up in one, and getting the reroll saves a 1 as well if the unit is over 10. Just for that to be like nearly 3 points cheaper than a Demonette is pretty nuts, right? So yeah, unfortunately, Demonettes are overpriced, which considering they should be your bread and butter of your Slaanesh army. Fiends are good but a bit too much. 120 points for free. I would like to see them to be about 100 points for 3, and then I think you're kind of cooking on gas with them. Even the keepers themselves, 290 points. While they're decent, their punch can lack a bit. Like they can lack punching up without some buffs. Very tough, but I still think they can maybe use a little bit of a drop. Shalaxi, while I'm happy to pay the 450 and I think she's amazing. She could use a bit of a drop. Like we wouldn't argue 25 to 50 points on her. Seeing her go back down to 400 wouldn't be terrible. So sadly, yeah, a bit overpriced overall. You can struggle under high toughness. So again, we have Shalaxi. She can kind of just punch through almost anything in the game. Aside from that, your keepers, which are your hardest hitting units aside from Shalaxi, are only strength 8 and strength 6 on their claws. So, and with 3 damage, yes, you have devil wounds on the claws, but you can struggle a bit. Your demons are strength 4, your fiends are strength 5. So, like, you're kind of relying again on those devastating wounds or maybe some buffs you can get from different areas, which we'll go into in a bit. Um, and sadly, your best units are easily move blocked. As much as we can move block people, we can also be move blocked. Slaanesh doesn't really have fly, doesn't have fly unless you look at Demon Princes. Like, um, your fiends, while decent, can be blocked. Keepers, while great, can be blocked. So that's a bit sad. Yes, you move really fast, but you kind of lack in the shooting to clear screens as well, and kind of just seeing your big units smash into those cheap screens and then getting pulled off the board next turn because the important units are just sitting behind, those throwaway units. Um, and then, sadly, most of the Herald level characters are just pretty poor. Now, to be honest, this isn't just a Slanesh mutual thing. Nurgle suffers with it. Zinch is better, but not by much. And Thorn actually seems to have the best of the Herald characters, as we have already spoken about. But yeah, like the Transweaver just isn't very good. Same as the Enraptress, she's not fantastic. The Contorted Epitome, in my opinion, aside from the fortifications, shares the worst unit in the book with the Bowl Piper. Just not very good. So yeah, like buffing your already overpriced, lacking demonette units, you can't really do that either. Unlike the Bloodletters who are overpriced, at least their attachable characters make up for it. But we will talk into one character in a minute, just how good that character makes the demonettes. So synergies, not even a minute, we're straight into it. Celeste. Celeste is your Herald Demon Prince hybrid, right? So it is a monster, so you have to be aware of that when you're moving the unit. It does attach to demonettes, but they can't move through walls, whereas the demonettes can. So always remember that. But what does Celeste give you? Celeste gives the unit she's attached to or they are attached to critical wounds on a 5 up, which means your demonettes with devastating wounds are now doing devastating wounds on 5s. This is really good to punch up. Now, this obviously also transfers onto Celeste herself, for anything she has. It just allows you to punch up, being able to wound anything on a 5+, and being able to punch through with those devastating wounds is just really, really good. Um, so yeah, and then Celeste herself, when she first dies, when they first die, on a 2+, they stand back up. So you don't even need to run her in unit demonettes, but you can if you want that bit of extra punch and some ablative wounds. And then she just kind of rampages off on their own, which is really nice. We have the mask, who I think the mask definitely is very critical if you're running a pure Slaanesh or a very heavily focused Slaanesh. So what does she give you? She basically has an ability that in the start of the fight phase, she picks one enemy unit within 6 inches of her, and she kind of just nominates that unit. And for the rest of the phase, anytime a Slanesh unit targets that enemy unit, you get +1 to wound. Now, this is a really good way to up the damage you can do anyway, but more specifically, this makes your keepers just punch better, right? So they're normally strength 8 with their swords, strength 6 with their claws. Now they can start to wound, toughest 10 on 4s, which is really, really nice. Um, with that flat 3 damage, you're quite regular, quite you got solid damage as well. So this is really nice. The other thing is it also makes the unit -1 to wound in melee for the rest of the phase. So bear in mind that also doesn't just affect Slanesh units. So that isn't just when that enemy unit attacks the Slanesh unit. For example, if you're running the mask in an undivided list, and you've got, say, the Great Unclean One, you nominate that unit. That unit is now -1 to hit whenever it targets anything, including the Great Unclean One. But we are focusing on Slaanesh here. Just a little bit of a detail to think about, though. But yeah, the mask is just solid, solid. 85 points now. Where she was 105, it was a bit like, 85 points for a lone up that can advance and charge with a 9-inch move. Not bad in combat, not amazing, but again, if you're running Slaanesh heavy, especially keepers, she's pretty good with them. Also hiding around a load of fiends as well, just making them -1 to wound, because then the fiends, as we'll get to at the bottom of this, with their aura as well. Again, this is how you kind of keep your units about in a Slanesh list, is just all these different debuffs. We also remembering on Seeker Chariot, so I think massively overpriced, unfortunately, 140 points. But there are some good abilities that she has, and a bit of a drop. Definitely something to think about if Slaanesh in general was to get quite a few drops. So they have a 6-inch aura of sustained hits 1 for Slaanesh units, which is pretty good. And then when one of your SNES units within 6 inches of the Torment Bringer is targeted in the fight phase, you can select that friendly unit. And for the rest of the phase, anytime a model in that SNES unit dies on a 4+, that unit can that model can then make an attack. So basically, fight on death. That is obviously if it hasn't already fought already, but that's just a really nice way to kind of you've got a big unit of fiends. They can sustain hits 1, which is really nice, but also if they're going to be charged by something deadly, you still have the chance to fight on death, being able to do damage before you go as well. Unfortunately, like I said, 140 points is really pricey for her. Um, she's super fast. She does have to go around walls because she's mounted, but and not terrible in combat herself. But yeah, I wish it came down probably 20 points. Um, but oh yeah, I think if Slanesh was to take some massive drops, I think the Torment Bringer could definitely be something to think about. And then, as we already mentioned, the Fiends have a 6-inch aura of -1 to hit against non-vehicle, non-monster, non-vehicle, non-titanic units. Sorry, they do affect monsters, which is quite nice. Um, so this is something you kind of combine with the mask. Like the mask has the select the unit, and that's -1 to the wound, and then the fiends make -1 to hit. These are quite nice around keepers, especially if your opponent has like pluses to hit, like they can get +1 to hit. This just makes the keeper -2 to hit. So though it still can't reduce the hit roll by more than one, um, it does kind of it's a good way to cancel out any pluses to hit. So for example, your opponent has +1 to hit, your keeper is -1 to hit, they cancel each other out, then your fiend's -1 to hit, or then kicks in. So that's quite nice to have. So as far as scoring points go, so some of the best units for it, fiends are pretty good. They're fast. They've got pretty decent combat, so they're very good at being able to just run forward, kill or mostly damage, like marine style units or anything like that, anything that isn't too tough. Being able to kill them or destroy most of them, having OC2 to be able to just flip objectives. That's a good, really, really good way to deny um, primary points as well as score some secondaries on certain objectives. Um, and they're very good for like engage and stuff like that. Again, fast, being able to charge in and kind of move around to get into those areas of the board. We have Shalaxi again. She's just fantastic, super fast, amazing, reliable damage. Again, if she goes into something and it doesn't die, then either that unit is just silly tough, or she's whiffed. Which again, with the rerolls, she's just very reliable. It's not often she has a bad game. Like I can maybe count on one hand in all the games of Temple I've played where I've come out of a game, and even then it's probably 2 or 3 times maybe where I've come out of a game and gone, she actually didn't pull her weight. Um, but she's very reliable. She's like your most reliable source of scoring. Bring it down. Um, Even assassinate because obviously she has precision on her soul piercer, which is like 6 attacks, strength 14, -3 d6 +2 damage, rerolling hits, wounds, and damage against character units. Um, just be aware as well, whenever she's using, or just whenever she's attacking a unit with a character in it, she gets to reroll the hits, wounds, and damage whether she's hitting the character or not, because the character keyword is conferred onto the unit the character is in. Therefore, she does get to reroll against them whether she's picking the character out or not, which is really nice. Also getting to reroll hits, wins, and damage against monsters and vehicles. She can score you, bring it down. She's very good at doing multiple, like scoring you multiple times in a turn as well. Like I've had her in a chaos, in an Imperial Knight game, shoot, get really, really like lucky on her sustained hits and her devastating wounds on her Pavane, and then just wiping out an Armiger and then running into a big knight and killing that. I've had her go into two Armigers and kill them both. I had a game where she went into a unit of two Tetras and a Ghost Kill against Tau and kill all three of them. And again, just she's just really good at damage, right? It's her thing, right? Then we have Seekers. They are super fast, like 14-inch move, Scout 9, which is really, really good. Like we haven't really got many instances at all of Scout, so to have them having it is really nice. Very good for early engage. Being able to move up the board, just being able to do like deploy slash locus as we were going to see in the new Pariah Nexus. Um, Even maybe behind enemy lines if you can get a good enough charge onto your opponent and a big enough charge to allow you to get around into the opponent deployment zone. Um, and just in general, being able to block your opponents in as well, which is quite nice, stopping them from being able to score points. Then we have the chariots as well, which Seeker Chariot is 65 points, 14-inch move, T6, 7 wounds, 5 pin run. That's pretty good. Like I've tested it out, and they're not like don't expect them to set the world alight, but they don't need to. They're just really fast. They'll zoom up the board. They'll score you some early points, whether it be like an early cleanse on a fire objective or engage or something like that. And even against like infantry units, they're pretty good. Like they're doing with 9 attacks, they're doing anti-infantry 4+ with dev wounds. Like they can cut through a bit of like an infantry unit, and then be able to take a punch back unless it's a really good combat unit. So yeah, like Seekers are pretty decent, I think. Seeker Chariot, sorry. And if you're taking a pure Slaanesh list or a very Slaanesh heavy list, I think you definitely want to take at least one or two of these. You can also take them in units of up to two. So if you really want to max like the amount of damage they can do, say if you're playing into a lot of orcs or admech or just a lot of bodies, maybe even sisters with their new silly book on the horizon, um, like these are definitely a good shout. Then we have a little example list. So this isn't anything that's done anything at an event. It's just something that I've been sitting on for a while. I make a lot of lists, right? But whenever I get a bit of a spare minute at work, whether I'm at home and I'm a bit bored, I just love making demon lists. And I'm always making lists with like for different gods or just in general different ideas. And this is one that I've planned to be sitting on. So I'll talk you through it and I'll just give you a bit of an example. Maybe you can take this, maybe adjust it to yourself, even if you put a few Synergy units out and put some other units in just to kind of make around, like kind of make it more yours. But we have Be'lakor. I'm going to always put Be'lakor on a list. I still rate Be'lakor. And I also don't rate him. He's weird. I want to like throw him out the window half the time because like he should go in and kill something and then doesn't. But then I have games where he just kills everything. He's not tough. He's really not tough. Like stealth is not enough on T5 and a 4-up 1 with 18 wounds. Too much in the game to kill him. He generally always dies. But the Reefed in Shades for the Lone Up 18 aura is so good. So good. If we are going to see more of a combat meta going into Prime Nexus, then maybe there might be less of a use for him. But even then, the Shadow Bubble is, in my opinion, my favorite part of him. Like the portable Shadow Bubble, being able to lift him up, drop him down, and drop things around him. Just reliable charges, meaning you don't have to be as extensive to get that shadows, because shadows can be hard to keep up, right? So that just gives you a bit of redundancy on that. We have got a Keeper of Secrets. So in this list, I just didn't give it Soul Stealer, which is the enhancement that every time you kill a model with the Keeper, you roll a dice on a 4+, adding one if she's in the shadows, you get a win back. It's really nice, but it's not the Everstave or it's not the Endless Gift. It's not like mandatory when you take a Greater Demon. Like it's nice to take, but I want to have more points. But the Keepers are good, like they are really tough, and they can punch into infantry, heavy infantry, and stuff like that. And then with some extra buffs, they can punch up as well. Shalaxi, because Shalaxi is just like I've already said, I'm a Shalaxi simp, right? She's amazing. Um, and you can just be like, that needs to die. I'm going to send Shalaxi after it. She pairs really well with Be'lakor, especially if you're bringing her in, ingressing her in within 6 inches of Be'lakor. Um, Look at my rapid ingress tip video to see the little tricks and tips there. Um, we also have Celeste because Celeste again just annoying. Dies and gets back up on a 2+, makes a unit of demon that's pretty nasty. And the mask because again that -1 to hit, -1 to wound and +1 to wound thing is just really good. Especially in this list where it's all Slaanesh apart from Be'lakor, so a lot of things are going to be benefiting from it. Being lone up as well gives you a little bit of play with her. Like you can kind of run her forward to sit on an objective early game, get you some early primary, and unless your opponent is going to have anything really fast to get to her, you're going to score the points. But you have got a unit demonette, so this is for Celeste, but you don't have to attach her, right? Because Celeste, yes, she wants to be in demonettes for the crit wounds, but Celeste is very capable of running on her own. The demonettes you can just sit on the backfield if you really need to. The options there. I don't rate them highly, but with Celeste, there's an argument for them. We have 2 units of Fiends because they're very good for early primary denial, early scoring, and just the -1 to hit aura as well in combat is just really good, especially sitting around the keeper or Shalaxi. Giving Shalaxi -1 to hit is really nice. Then we have 3 Seeker Chariots. So again, they're just so cheap. You can surge them forward. They don't have to go and do combat. You can move them forward, sit on an objective, keep them within Be'lakor to not be shot, or just hide behind walls. Sending them into infantry units to just kind of mow them down as well is really nice. Move blocking and screening as well is just really good for them as well because of their base size. And then 2 units of 5 seekers. So again, super fast. The scout allows you to just kind of surge forward. The idea of this whole list is to just be really fast, really annoying, kind of just mucking about with your opponent's list and the board, kind of always making them think that they've always got a screen out, but they've always got to remember behind them because you can just pick Be'lakor up and drop Shalaxi around and drop Celeste with Demonettes around him. And it's a list that is it can kind of be anywhere depending on or not really caring where it is on the board. Everything is fast. Its minimum movement is 9 on the Demonettes and the Mask, and Celeste. So and then we have a lot of like the Fiends move 12, the Chariots, Seekers, and the Keepers all move 14. Belacor moves 12. We have Advance and Charge with the Shadows if we need it. So yeah, so overall the whole point of the list is just being really fast, being able to score, mid-board secondaries quite nicely, being able to muck about with the opponent with debuffs, as well as just being able to hem them in and stop them being able to just kind of going where they want to go to. But it is not very tough, right? The Keeper is tough, Shlax is tough, Celeste is annoying, the Mask is blown up, but Demonettes will fall over to anything. Fiends can be tough, especially in combat, but again, will fall over to anything with some good damage. Chariots are actually annoying and they have to be dedicated into, but can be brought down with some dedicated firepower. Seekers will fall over to a breeze, right? And Be'lakor is not that tough either, but that's where the whole no-shoot bubble helps us early game. So yes, is it the best Slaanesh list you could run? Probably not, but it's a all-rounded Slaanesh list that in my opinion. Um, but there is definitely an argument for just Keeper Rush. I would love to run a Keeper Rush list because it is just fun. So that's the Slaanesh focus. As you can see, definitely some work to be done as far as maybe points goes. I think we could definitely use some drops on our Slaanesh units, but there is some power there. I think it's a list type that has quite a high skill ceiling. Like you've kind of got to have a lot of reps with it. You have to know how to use the movement phase and the charge phase to your advantage. Um, but I think you can be really annoying with it. Is it going to win you big events? No. Is it going to go long and far in super majors? It will struggle, but you can definitely go into RTTs with this and into the right matchups. Definitely get some good results. So overall, hopefully you can take something out of this, whether it to be running your own Synergist or just taking some of these combos or some of these synergies you learned here and putting them into your undivided list. Unfortunately, until we get the new codex, which is way off into the future, assuming we don't actually know, it's quite hard to run any mono list, but at least Korn and Nurgle have some pretty good mono plays. Slanesh struggles. But you can definitely have fun. Like I think a keeper rush list is just fun because they're tough, they're fast. You're just running at your opponent, and it doesn't take a genius to kind of just go whoosh like that. So thank you for tuning in. Please like and subscribe. It really is appreciated and it helps the channel out massively. It allows me to continue doing this. Check out the Facebook and the Instagram to keep up with all our uploads, hobby progress, tournament progress. You get it, all that stuff. So thank you for tuning in, and I will catch you all in the next one.